end. Indeed, justice delayed is justice denied. And you see that a lot in Ghana. For example, let me give you two examples. One of them in the political arena. In 1996, as part of the parliamentary elections in Ayawaso, somebody was elected on the NDC ticket, and the MPP candidate protested that the elections had been improper. It took 4 years in the courts to resolve the case in favor of the MPP person, and by the time they resolved the case, the parliamentary term had ended. Let me give you a second example. About 2001 or so, Penekwe Kubuo was reported upon in the graphic, begging a judge. He says, "Judge, settle this case before I die. I'm 80 years old, and this case has been in the court system for about 13 years. My opponents are just waiting for me to die." I think our legal system must move a little faster than that. Certain time to complete the case, issue your ruling the same time, clear appeal processes, written opinions, so that it will become transparent. As I speak now, the Chief Justice is under investigation because he had, among other things, he had transferred the case from Kumasi to Accra, from one judge to the other, without even assigning reasons about why he moved the case. And just in case you didn't know, if your case got in front of the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice has it within his discretion to name any 3 judges to sit on your case. That kind of legal system encourages corruption and becomes a destructive force instead of a constructive force. The next thing we have to do is to do public education so that as a nation we'll stop tolerating ill-gotten money, whether it is from drugs or from corruption or from wherever, because this nation have gotten to where it is not uncommon for a church to invite somebody who is a known drug dealer and has made money to go and preside over their harvest because he will give a lot of money. That is wrong, and we ought to say it is wrong. Finally, I believe that whatever else you do, examples are very important. We need to appoint honest people to government in the first place, because I will believe till my dying day that corrupt people can never run honest governments. And until we put honest people in government, we shall always have corruption, because they are never going to fight. Thank you. Thank you. The 2 other things I talked about, I would mention briefly, and during question time we might go into it. I talked about excessive tribalism. I think when we look at one another, we ought to see each other as Ghanaians. Whether when you go home, you go to Accra, you go to Sogakupe, you go to Kumasi, you go to Sunyani or wherever, you are a Ghanaian. And until we start looking at each other as Ghanaians who relate to each other through our nation rather than through our tribes, we shall continue to struggle. On partisanship, our nation is too partisan. We should never have a situation where, when there is a drug problem that our nation is trying to solve, the 2 major parties will be pointing to each other as the drug party. Drugs are not an MPP problem. They are not an NDC, but they are a Ghanaian problem. And our leaders ought to focus on how to fix that problem and stop pointing fingers. We have gotten to a point where if you are an MPP person and you say Nkrumah was a good leader, some people look at you suspicious. Are you sure you are one of us? And when you are a CPP person, you say, you know, Buzia did some good things. They go, are you sure you are a member of our party? We ought to be able to say, I am a proud NPP man and Nkrumah was a good president, and there's no contradiction in that. Those are the kinds of things that are overarching. But let me tell you my policy priorities. I have 5 of them. 1, we need to make governments work for the people. 2, we need to put our people to work. 3, we need to create a place at our national table for our diasporans, because without them we can never turn our nation around. 4, we need to fix our healthcare system so that it becomes a healthcare system rather than an illness care system. And 5, we need to aggressively apply technology. We do not have enough time to go over all these, obviously, but let me address the first one, and then since all of us here are diasporans, address the third one, and the others I'm sure will come up during question time. Making our government work for us. I'm running to be president, but I think the constitution we are operating under makes our president too powerful. We need to move significant amounts of power from the presidency to parliament and out of Accra into the districts. Let me talk about the presidency and parliament. Most constitutions have separation of power. So the president has what constitutionalists call the power of the sword. In other words, war-making powers. And the legislature has the power of the purse, which is raise taxes and all that kind of thing. Just in case you don't know. Currently, under the constitution we operate, Parliament cannot consider a bill relating to expenditures unless it emanates from the president. That makes him too powerful. I say that we should give that power to Parliament. 2, as you all know, the president is obligated to appoint at least half of his ministers from Parliament. The practical effect of this is that currently, and I love the MPP, half of the MPP members of Parliament are ministers, so he's their boss. They don't want to take him on. And the same thing happened at the NDC. The other half are hoping that next time there's a reshuffle, they will be ministers, so they don't want to offend him. So when he says jump, the response is how high is it? We need a parliament that will be independent enough to call the president to account. I am not saying the president does not deserve the support of his members in parliament, but he does not need them to be sycophants. They ought to be able to say, Mr. President, with a lot of respect, on this issue, you are wrong, and stand up for their conscience. Let me talk about decentralization. Currently, we have district chief executives nominated by the president and then confirmed by the district assemblies. I say let's elect them. And indeed, in 2000, the MPP campaigned on a promise to elect them. Unfortunately, once we got into office, we have not been able to do that yet. I think we ought to do it. And the reason why that is a good idea is that it gives people more power to take decisions affecting their life. For example, I look for the day soon when 2 very good candidates for mayor of Accra or Kumasi will lay out their platforms about what they want to do about the city, let people listen to them and vote for them, and then one of them will win, and in 4 years' time, if he didn't live up to the promises, they will vote the person up. In addition to electing the DCEs, I think we need to give the district assemblies control over all the money that is spent in their jurisdiction. The third thing is that they ought to have control over personnel. Currently, I can tell you that the civil servants who work with the district assemblies are appointed, promoted, and fired in Accra. And as long as that happens, the districts will never have control over their own affairs. Second, a lot of people ask me about, Doc, how are you going to put our people to work? First,